I am really excited because today I'm touching on, I think, one of the most important things that we need to embody in our lives, which is self-love. And I feel like there is a misconception about what self-love actually is. And even though taking care of ourselves aesthetically is something that is amazing to do because we should care for our bodies and we should move and work out and we should do our beauty routines and all these things, there is so much more that goes into actually embodying what self-love is, and I'm going to cover it in this video. I also just want to share a little bit of a disclaimer because the only reason why I can teach from a place of any words I'm about to say is because I have been on my own self-love journey for a very long time. And I used to be a girl living in LA, dating a famous person and getting my lip injections and, got a boob job when I was 20 years old. And I have learned that when you really embody self-love for what it truly is, you learn to love your body exactly the way that the creator or whatever you believe in built it, and loving it wholly. When we want to change ourselves on a normal basis because we feel insecure, this is because we have some sort of issue around judgment and feeling judged by others, or not feeling beauty enough, or not being accepted into society because I don't look like XYZ person. But that is a much deeper rooted thing that we need to address and we need to unravel to understand why we're seeking and need validation from someone else to feel the love within ourselves, because it's something that's not sustainable. And even though we love feeling love from our family and from our partner and from our friendships and whatever the people who really love us in our lives, you have to understand that those people are going to love you no matter what you look like if they really truly have a deep love for you. And to be fair, I've learned the only people that I want in my life are going to be those people who are genuinely going to love me no matter what. I had a fear when I was younger that women were never going to accept me, or they were going to leave me from my life. And so I had a lot of unhealthy women relationships when I was younger because I had this fear that if I didn't people please them, or if I didn't overgive all of my energy all the time to the women around me in my life, they were going to leave me. And that came from a childhood experience from my mother, who, by the way, never left me, but there was a circumstance where my mom went through a really challenging time in her life, and we lost custody of being with my mom and we moved with my dad. And when you're young, my emotional experience was my mom left me. But even though that's not true, my mom didn't leave me. She fought for us for years on end and we split custody. Like, I have a beautiful relationship with my mother. When we're young and we go through something emotional like that, that stays in your subconscious, in your soul as like an imprint, so that in your 3D human experience, you all of a sudden think that all the women that you end up loving are going to leave you, because that's the one mother, the one person that I had in my life to teach me that relationship with the feminine did that to me. It was a trauma that I had that I was just manifesting into different relationships. And the crazy thing about how these things work is that you will attract friendships that will leave you, because that's the energy that you are basically putting out into the universe. But the moment that I healed that, and the moment that I had enough friendships that really, excuse my language, but fucked me over, and I healed that because I could recognize it and I journaled it and I understood it and I knew that it came from something that, yes, was my reality, but it's not happening to me again. It's an illusion that it would happen to me going forward. I was able to now attract nothing but amazing, supportive, beautiful women in my life who I never have to worry about leaving me, because I don't have the fear of that, because I know that if they do leave my life, it's actually for the absolute best version and best situation for me at that time. Let's start with understanding real self-love. And I want to start with what self-love is not. Number one, pretending that you're perfect and ignoring your emotions is definitely not an act of self-love. Second thing that is not self-love is only loving yourself when things are going well in your life. The third one, and also the most important one, to be honest, is setting boundaries just to be a people pleaser. What self-love actually is. These are just a few, so gather with me here. There's a lot of different versions of what we can cover, but I'm just gonna go with like the most common ones. Being gentle with yourself when you make mistakes. We are human beings. We are made to make mistakes. We are here on this planet to actually make a lot of mistakes to then transform ourselves into a better human being. So, being kind to ourselves and not feeling shame and not feeling guilt when we don't always get it 100% right, that is self-love. Number 2, super important, setting boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable. Setting boundaries is being super open and honest. You're doing it from a loving and kind manner. I would genuinely text a friend and be like, I would really love to come to your party. I'm so sorry, I'm really not feeling up to it. I'm gonna stay home and put a face mask on. I hope that we can, catch up another time. Literally being as honest as possible. And you know what that person says? They're like, that sounds amazing, totally understand you. And there you go. It's like all of a sudden you have the support. So communicating and having boundaries is so important and one of the top things for self-love. And the third one, which is my absolute favorite, which most people don't like, is understanding your inner world so you can actually transform your triggers. This, I think, is the absolute top tier thing you can do for self-love, because it's nurturing your inner world where it doesn't matter what happens on the outside, your inner world is grounded and protected and nurtured and understood, so that no matter what comes at you, whether it be work-related, friendship-related, it's nurturing and understanding and protecting that inner world so that your nervous system doesn't go out of whack or you spiral into a bad place. Nurturing that inner world and learning how to do that and continuing on that journey for our entire lifetime is how you really embody self-love. So let's talk about creating the foundation for all the things that I just spoke about. So number 1, and I've talked about this many times, so if I sound like a broken record and you have not embodied journaling yet, I am going to tell you again. Journaling is one of the best things that you can do for self-love and nurturing that inner world. So buy a journal. If journaling is already a practice that you have, congratulations. This is such an important step. One of the reasons why I love journaling the most is because you literally become your own therapist. When you put your thoughts and all of the craziness that goes on in our very amazingly intelligent brains onto paper, you're able to understand things and figure them out and process them at a much quicker rate than just spiraling in your head. Second to that, having a safe home environment is one of the most important things that you can do for your well-being. And what I mean by that is, yes, having a place that you love and a home that you love. This is where you get to actually relax your nervous system. This is where when you come home, you should drop into rest and feel like, oh, I love being home. This is my sanctuary. Of course, when we're talking about kids and partners, like that can obviously, ruffle our feathers a little bit. So second to that is having a space in your home where you do all your journaling and meditation. I like to call it an altar space. You can call it whatever you want. For me, it's my coffee table in my living room for now. That will probably change when I have children, who knows? But for now, that's my safe space where I have my crystals, I have my incense, I have my journal waiting for me, and I always bring my cup of bone broth or my matcha with me for my morning self-reflection. The next really important thing about self-love is creating safety within yourself. When I talk about this, it is specific to when we become reactive in our lives, in our daily lives. And I'm going to teach you a practice that I actually learned from Kabbalah that has really transformed my life and helping me understand where my triggers are coming from and becoming a non-reactive person, and also discovering where and how to transform those triggers. And how I like to do this is when we start to be reactive in our lives. For instance, the other day, I was trying to blend a smoothie and my blender decided to not work, and I start, trying to move around. I'm like, okay, I just turn it off, I start resetting and it doesn't work, and I just bought it and then it keeps not working, and then I start getting angry, right? I start getting reactive. I'm like, how is it that I just bought this blender and it's not working? And I start to feel this reactivity come inside of me, and I literally go, pause, what a pleasure. The moment that you can pause yourself from spiraling into reactivity, Then say, what a pleasure. You have to shift your mindset into certainty of, this is in my life and I am becoming reactive because this is an opportunity for me to transform something within myself of a trigger of why I would be upset about something that's very small like that. And sometimes it's not so big and there's not a huge trigger you need to transform, but it does bring awareness to you the moment that you become reactive, and the pause part can actually bring you back into a grounded place of being like, is it really worth me being reactive right now and channeling negative energy versus like being supportive and channeling the light. The next thing that I like to share from Kabbalah also is, why is this in my movie? I like this text because asking yourself questions is one of the most powerful tools that you can do in your inner work. And sometimes we don't know the answer right away, but just understanding that there is a reason why it's in your movie, and to self-reflect, and this is where journaling becomes amazing. You just go to the journal, grab it, and say, I just got triggered by X. Why is this in my movie? And try to self-reflect on the other times where you've become reactive, or what was the emotion that you felt when you started to be reactive? Was it unsafe, frustration, fear? So many different emotions that we can kind of tap into. And then once you tap into that, you can basically try to find the experience that you experienced before and then work on unraveling that further. The next thing I want to touch on is boundaries. So setting boundaries can be hard for a lot of us. And I do understand why, as I shared a little bit in the beginning of this video, the reason why I had some issues with boundaries, and people pleasing tends to be a big part of that. It's not about like being rude or mean or I don't want to come, or when your parents trigger you, you know, being aggressive, like I don't want to speak to you anymore because you irritated me. That's not a boundary. That's being reactive and not coming from a loving place, and the opposite of self-love, and including, you know, self-love in the way of giving love too. So the best way to set boundaries is always to come from a loving place. And what I like to think about, especially when it comes to setting boundaries when you have confrontation, the formula is, how can I come from a loving place and it be beneficial on both sides? And our egos have a hard time thinking about how it can be beneficial for the other person, especially if they've triggered you or made you upset, or frankly, you don't think that they deserve it. Where the energy is the most beneficial and where the relationship will always be okay, regardless if they're in your life or not, and you will feel good about the situation no matter what, is if you're able to put your ego aside, you're able to look at the other person's situation and ask yourself, how can I make it beneficial for both? And then communicate that in a way where you feel it deep in your soul. I feel like this is good for me, and I also feel like it's beneficial for them. When you can get to that point, that's when you know you can set a beautiful boundary and come from a place of non-reactive behavior, but in a very delicate, loving manner. And boundaries can go from bosses to work environments, to friendships, to families, to partners, to children. You have to learn how to have boundaries with every single aspect of your life that's in the outside world other than your inner world. So I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. The first one is, where do I need to set better boundaries? And get your journal out, write the question down, and journal as much as you may need, but really self-reflect on this. The second one is, how can I communicate boundaries with love instead of fear? Because we all know when there's reactive setting of boundaries, it typically comes from some sort of fear. Sometimes we're not going to be perfect, and sometimes we're going to fall back into old patterns, and sometimes we're not going to get it 100% right, and that's totally okay. Self-love is about loving yourself no matter where you're at and no matter if you make mistakes. And going back to the practices that I taught you to try and circle back our energy into a more loving place. So just be kind to yourself and know that it's not about perfectionism. It's not about nailing it the first month or the first week or the first day. This is a long journey of building a foundation of self-love and getting to know ourselves. And that takes time to unravel. It's like the peeling of an onion. So be gentle and give yourself self-love even when you don't nail it. My last little note here is, when you truly embody self-love, your relationships are going to improve. You attract better opportunities. You make decisions from wisdom and not fear. You stop settling for less than what you know you deserve. Self-love is truly a journey, and it's a beautiful one. So just remember that the more that you love yourself and the more that you can really embody self-love, the more everything in your life is going to transform. The journey of self-love is deeply personal, but we really, really don't need to do this alone. Some of the most profound upheavals and transformation that we can go through is by having a community of supportive and like-minded individuals around us together. I know in my own journey, sitting in sacred space with women and being open and vulnerable and like-minded to all trying to better ourselves in our different ways, that's when you really can transform in such a quicker, rapid pace. This is why I created Shayna's Serene Circle. This is an online community where we can all connect and be surrounded by like-minded individuals on our own independent journeys, while also literally creating a safe container of so much wisdom and support of each other. This is why I wanted to create it, because in my own journey, I have had so much isolation and so much time where I felt like I was really alone. And even though sometimes we need that time to ourselves of self-reflection and we do have to spend time by ourselves, we don't need to be fully alone. And this is why having this community online is so amazing, because it allows you to tap in and out and gather wisdom and tools to help you through your process of becoming a more connected and self-loved individual. If you decide to join this community, we have some really special things like live Zoom sessions with me. I call these Sacred Circle sessions. We do them every month and we all together in our faces on Zoom, and I just love it so much, and we talk about the theme of that month. Click the link in the description if you want to join. We are truly building something special and I would love for you to be a part of it. I'll see you in the next video.